Hello everyone, I'm Cole from the Kingdom, and today I want to talk about games where you have multiple active player characters. We'll look at some examples where I think it worked really well, and ones where I think it worked less well, and ones I don't really care for. Let's start with GTA 5, where the multiple protagonists thing was something they really hyped up. You could switch between them at any time, and they would be off living their own lives while you weren't playing as them. They all had distinct personalities, they had their own friends and goals, and it made it hard to connect with and care about any of them. I think if it were just Michael and Franklin, it would have been a lot better. Two generations, two very different upbringings, but becoming partners nonetheless, and having more of a mentor-apprentice relationship. I think I still would have preferred just one playable protagonist, but I could see the two of them working well. Trevor just messes everything up. That's his whole character, ruining stuff, including the game. I heard a rumor that the next game will have a Bonnie and Clyde type duo for the playable protagonists. See, now that doesn't seem like such a bad idea. Two playable characters with a close relationship works. So let's talk about Assassin's Creed Syndicate. Jacob and Evie Fry, both great characters, both get about equal screen time and development. You can switch between them at any time, except for missions that are specifically for one character or the other. Works really well in my opinion. They're each pursuing different leads towards the same goal, but they each have very different approaches, and their stories play off one another. What one of them does, the other has to deal with, usually Evie cleaning up after Jacob. Both of them grow over the course of the game, and we hear their thoughts on that as it goes on. Jacob learns he should be more patient and subtle, Evie learns to be more proactive and take more risks. They balance each other out, and they have a very believable sibling relationship. Underrated Assassin's Creed game. This is an example of multiple protagonists done well. So let's talk about LA Noire. Damn, this game disappoints me. I don't just mean that I was hyped for it and it wasn't as good as I expected. That is true, but it disappoints me on another level. I don't want to go into too much detail that isn't relevant to the multiple protagonists thing, but you play through hours and hours as Cole Phelps, and then suddenly you're some other guy whose name I don't even remember. I'm just gonna call him Jack, private investigator. This took me totally off guard. When we first got control of him in an interview scene, I didn't even realize I was in control for a good minute. Now we're this totally new character, and I didn't care about him at all. I mean, by this point in the game, I didn't like Cole either. But I kind of felt like he was going to get some redemption. He doesn't. His death is super unsatisfying, and again, playing as this Jack guy, they didn't give us nearly enough reason to care about any of this. Maybe if we had interacted with Jack a fair amount up until this point, it would have been better. So Red Dead Redemption, right? Yeah, no, I stopped playing after John died for no reason. And I mean, no reason. Like, this is worse than Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, and that's saying something. So I couldn't even bother caring about playing as Jack. Not that I don't like the idea. Playing as John's son is really cool for the endgame, and you get to see the aftermath of some of what John did. It's just that John died for no reason. If he had died for a good reason, or even a reason, that probably would have been fine. And yeah, I get it thematically, like this is supposed to be his redemption, but I couldn't help but roll my eyes, because I saw so many other options for surviving that, and being with his family. So let's look at a Rockstar game that was way better. GTA 4 and its expansions, The Lost and Damned and The Ballad of Gay Tony. Although this doesn't really count as multiple protagonists, but I want to talk about it for a bit and you'll see why. In GTA 4 there are a few missions where you interact with this biker named Johnny and this mysterious guy named Luis. In The Lost and Damned we play as Johnny, and in The Ballad of Gay Tony we play as Luis. So we see these interactions from new perspectives. Additionally, some stuff that happens to other characters we get to see how it happens. Like Nico's cousin being taken, or tracking Packy to the safe house where they took the mob boss's daughter. But a big recurring theme is a whole fiasco around some stolen diamonds. Seeing that whole conflict from 3 different perspectives is really, really cool. Even this, in the opening cutscene of GTA 4, it comes back because that's the guy who sells Luis the diamonds. And even this cake box comes back. I won't tell you how. That's the kind of thing you only notice after playing through again. But again, this isn't really multiple protagonists. T-Lad and Tabagta are expansions, so they are each their own story that happen to intersect at certain points. And that's really cool on its own. So let's talk about Resident Evil 6. Now, this game was not received well, and I see why. By this point in the series, they had really stepped away from the survival horror roots in favor of action with some horror elements. That said, I actually think I like it better than 5. I don't know if that's controversial or not. But as far as the multiple protagonists go, this game did something I love. You get 3 or 4 campaigns and they intersect at various points, much like the GTA 4 thing. They also are unique stories that could totally stand on their own. I don't even know what it is, but I adore when stories intersect like this, but you get more context with each one. So there's the individual stories for each of the characters and campaigns, and then there's another story on top of that of what's going on in the world, that you only really appreciate by putting the 3 stories together. So as many things that Resident Evil 6 did wrong, it did that well in my book. Assassin's Creed Origins. Kinda forgot this had a few sections where you play as Aya. I say this counts. You play through the vast majority of the game as Bayek. He's who you play as for all the side quests and exploration stuff, but certain points in the story have you playing as his wife, Aya. It's just for one mission at a time, you don't get to explore or anything, it's just a quick flash to get some more context. I feel like if they were going to do this, they should have done it a little more. Make it more memorable, you know? AC Syndicate is probably my favorite example of multiple protagonists. Switch at any time, different arcs and missions, but they actively interact with one another. Unlike GTA 5, it's quite easy to get attached to both of them, and neither of them make me want to stop playing. Resident Evil 6 did something I think is super cool in its own right, but it's not the same thing as AC Syndicate. Resident Evil 6 is more like 3 or 4 individual stories coming together for one big story, whereas AC Syndicate is more like 2 halves of a single story. Not that either is inherently better or worse than the other, both are great storytelling devices, and I guess they both meet the criteria for this trope of multiple protagonists. Is it a trope? Let's see. Yeah, I guess. So yeah, different approaches to the same concept, I like them both a lot. In the case of LA Noire and Red Dead Redemption, it was not great because the Switch kinda came out of nowhere, and as far as I'm concerned, the overall story is worse for their inclusion. Not that they couldn't have been good, it's not a bad concept. It was just poor execution in my opinion. Maybe if John Marston had died for a good reason instead of no reason, maybe that would have been better. And if we could have interacted with Jack the PI a fair amount before playing as him, that would have been better. Would it have saved the games for me? No, I don't think so. But it would have been better. I feel like I'm kind of rambling now. Let's recap. Multiple protagonists can be used in a variety of different ways, none of which are inherently better or worse than the others. But the characters have to be good in their own right, and they need enough space for the player to connect with them. You can have side-by-side stories that affect one another, like Resident Evil 6, or you can have multiple playable characters in the same story, like GTA 5. You can have stories that abruptly end so you can introduce a new playable character, but you should have a good reason to stop playing as the first one. And it's best if we already have some experience with the new guy. So what are some of your favorite examples of multiple protagonists? I can think of other games that did it well too, but I wanted to talk here about what have been the most significant examples to me. And be sure to tell me in the comments how Red Dead Redemption is the best game ever and I'm stupid. So that's it for now guys, thank you all so much for watching, don't forget to comment and like. I'll see you later.